What's going on, guys? So a couple years ago I made a video about my homemade backup buddy, and I have it right in front of us actually with the lights off. So let's recap what a homemade backup buddy or a backup buddy is. A backup buddy is a piece of 2-inch square stock to start with, and you can build anything on top of that to mount auxiliary lighting. And the main purpose of that is your ordinary taillights do not put out enough light for you to adequately see most of the time. For my truck, it definitely doesn't. I don't know about the newer trucks, but it's really nice to have, or for me personally, it's necessary to have auxiliary lighting when it comes to backing up snow plowing, because you're backing up so often that it's crucial that you're able to see what's behind you, because you never know what's behind you. And the cool thing about these backup buddies is you can customize them to whatever you wanted to do. So the idea I had behind this one is I put a piece of softwood in the front, or in the rear of this backup buddy. And the purpose of the softwood was if I ever tapped into anything, that would kind of soften the blow. Another idea I had, as opposed to having a kingpin in the 2-inch receiver here, I could put like a little bolt, kind of like a shear bolt. So that way if I hit something, the shear bolt will break and hopefully take out some of the impact. But anyway, we're getting off topic. So this is the one I made a couple years ago. It served me well. It's a little dated. I'd really like to do something a bit different. Sure, this will work just fine if I decide to mount the lights back on there and add a coat of paint on it to it or whatever. I don't even have to do that, but I want to make something a little bit beefier and something a little bit different. So that's what today's video is going to be about. Probably going to be a couple of videos, so let me show you what I have in mind. Okay, before we get started, funny story behind that. That says Pandy Farm. I've been a subscriber of Mr. One Lonely Farmer for some years now. I used to be a really big fan of his about 3 years ago. I'm still a big fan, but I actually made that kind of like fan art for him. And I contacted him a couple times trying to send that out to him, but he never responded. So, you know what, Mr. One Lonely Farmer? You lost your chance. This is going to be repurposed now. I did spend quite a bit of time making that. Welded on the letters, and then I had to take painter's tape and cut out each letter very specifically. So whatever. So this is what I'm thinking for my new backup buddy design. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna keep the plate right here, except on the ends I plan to fold them in. So you're basically gonna have a seam. And then after I fold them in, I'm gonna lay a piece of flat stock recessed in from the back of this plate. And on that flat stock on the bottom there, on either side, I'm gonna have a light facing out like that. So the idea is if somebody were to tap me, somebody tailgating me, or I back into something accidentally, you would hit this plate and it wouldn't damage the lights. Now, if you remember on the old backup buddy, I had a piece of softwood to kind of dampen the blow. Well, I was thinking, what could I do for this one? And what I have here, I used to be a landscaper, and the guy I worked for had a dump truck welding project. One of the mud flaps fell off, and I welded on a new bracket, and the mud flap was wider than the bracket, so I had to cut a piece of the mud flap off. So this is like 1/2-inch thick rubber. This is some pretty heavy duty stuff. So after I fold these sides in, of course I'm gonna have to grind this all down, or maybe I won't have to. I'll figure that out as I go along. But I'm gonna have this mud flap on here, and that's basically gonna be a bit of a cushion, and then it's gonna bolt on the sides. You can't bolt it right on, because if you were to back into something, then you kind of lose the cushion of the rubber. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. We're gonna bend this up into a C-channel, throw some heavy-duty rubber on the back, lay a piece of flat stock to mount our lights, and then I also have some other lights. I used to be a volunteer EMT, and I have some old flashing LED green lights, 6 heads, and I'm gonna see if I can incorporate them somehow in here. Now, this project's gonna take quite a bit of cutting, grinding, welding, and it takes a lot of work to set up the shots, and it really slows down the process, and I don't think many people really appreciate it because I just speed it up anyway. So I think I'm gonna skip ahead, and I'll visit back with you when I have this thing about ready to be fabbed up. Alright, been playing around with this thing for a while now, and I think I have this pretty much figured out what I'm gonna do. So as you can see, I didn't do the C-channel bend that I originally had planned. I'm liking this design much better. See, the problem with me doing the C-channel bend
with this piece of steel is that would make this not as wide as I'd like it. So I decided to keep it long, and what I'm actually planning on doing now is just weld it. Well, this is upside down, but I'm going to weld a piece of flat stock kind of coming off the side here, and then we're going to figure out the mounting of the lights later. So what I've done thus far is I've removed the chain off this old Pandy Farm 2-inch receiver plate, but I don't think I had the chain on in the previous video anyway. Used to be a chain border on there, but I've decided to actually leave the welded letters on there just because I felt like it wasn't really worth the effort of grinding them off. And you know what? This will actually benefit me. So the way I'm securing this on here is carriage bolts, and when I tighten these down, they are going to sink some into the flap here. So the nice thing about the lettering is it'll actually push out the center of this, therefore helping the carriage bolts to countersink. So it's actually going to be beneficial of all things, so I was kind of pleasantly surprised with that. But thus far, I think it's looking pretty good. I like the look and I like the style of that. It reminds me of like a tow truck, so I'm going to have to put 3 more carriage bolts up on the top, and I'm going to have to trim this mud flap out, and then we'll go from there. And then I'm actually probably going to take that off, and then I'll start working on what we're doing on the sides here. So let's go.
Alright, so it's night number 2. I'm out here in the garage working on this thing, and I have my final design figured out, and I'll take the camera off the mount in a second and show that to you. But I'm getting set up to make a pretty crucial weld. As you can see behind me, I got everything clamped down, all my measurements. I measured twice. This thing's ready to be welded. Now, there's 2 ways I could weld this with my capabilities. I could arc weld it, which is what I wanted to do. I got that arc welder maybe 6 months ago, but I haven't got arc welding down. I have a practice piece that I've kind of been working on, and some of my beads look decent, but I've really been struggling to get arc welding down. So I got my MIG welder set up. I got a little bit of shielding gas left in there. I did a practice bead, and for me, I'm just awesome at MIG. MIG comes so easy to me. I don't know, maybe it's just because I learned that way, but for those of you that haven't welded before with MIG is 90% prep work and it's 10% welding. You get a really clean piece of metal, you get a good shielding gas going, you get your settings right, you could lay down anybody could lay down a bead. I guess arc welding does take a lot more skill than MIG. I guess people argue about that, but whatever. So enough of that. Let me get you off the camera and I'll show you what I got going on here.
Alright, no, this is not an airplane. This is a backup buddy. So this obviously goes into the 2-inch receiver on the truck. You got a heavy duty, it's maybe 3/8 inch thick plate. So that's going to be on the back, and then you're going to have this rubber bumper bolted on there, of course, 6 bolts. And then I'm welding on these wings, and on these wings, to get a light, I gotta give these a coat of paint. There's a mounting piece that goes on the bottom there. So on these wings, I'm gonna set up lights on either side like that, and then they're gonna be able to pivot so I can adjust the light wherever I need to. But the angle that I have this bracket set up right now, it should be pretty close. And the reason why I angled that bracket off there like that, as opposed to going straight out, is so that these are less likely to be hit by anything if I'm backing up into a bank or something. So it's kind of recessed in there, it's a bit protected, and that's the idea behind that. So I think for these welds, I will set up the camera and you'll get to watch these. Now, a couple thoughts behind this. I plan just to weld on the top right here, which I know what you're saying. Those of you that are welders, that's not the best idea, because when I weld that, this piece is going to have a tendency to bow up. But I have everything secured down, so I'm going to limit that as much as possible. I don't really feel like I have to weld the underside for strength. I'm just really hoping that that doesn't bend up. So in order to counter that, I have 2 clamps to kind of keep that clamp down. I have this 2-inch piece of square stock supported quite well, so hopefully it doesn't bend up. But let's weld this up and see what happens. Wish me luck.
Now, if you ask me, those are some pretty nice looking welds. I don't know, just something about shield and MIG comes so naturally to me. I'll get stick down eventually, but anyway, some nice looking welds. They're definitely going to be plenty strong for what I'm doing. I know I could have welded up the whole thing, could have done the other side, but the purpose of these wings are really only to hold little lights. Nobody's ever going to be stepping on this, so plenty of weld for what I need to do here. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool down for a little while, hopefully allow the steel to take the form of where it's at. If I were to take these clamps off while this is warm, then there's going to be a higher likelihood of it deforming, which I don't want it to do, so I'm going to allow it to cool down, set in place, and so the next thing I'm going to do is start drilling holes in these wings for these LED lights, and I'm just going to start mocking this up and see what I like, and I'll check in with you in a couple minutes. Real quick, let's see if this deformed at all. Nice. I think this is going to work out just fine. Oh, yeah. Yep, we're in good shape. Awesome. Nice. Alright, so it's day number 3 working on this thing, and today's pretty much been a cleanup. The rough ends of this project and painting, as you can see behind me. And I did something kind of interesting with this project. Now, I've had these LED lights for a while, and on the ends the paint was starting to come off, so what I elected to do was to remove that paint via a wire wheel, and as opposed to painting it black again, I decided to preserve the industrial finish that's on there right now, and there's a little bit of black on there still, but I think that style actually is pretty cool. And what I just did, I threw some Rust-Oleum clear enamel on there, and that's going to preserve that, and the rest of the light's black. I think it's going to be a really cool look. And as for the mounting hardware, I was trying to grind them down shiny with a wire wheel, but the paint wasn't really coming off, so I just elected to paint them black. Now, walking to the back of the truck, this is how this thing came out. It kind of looks kind of goofy, but it kind of looks pretty cool at the same time. Yeah, Painty Farm's still on there. So what I did is I elected, I know I've been saying elected a lot, whatever. I decided to grind these side wings down and make them shiny as opposed to painting them, because I think that looks kind of cool in contrast with the black there. And of course, on top of that, I decided to just throw some Rust-Oleum clear coat on there as well. And this is almost going to be a bit of an experiment too. I'd like to see how clear coat does alone when it comes to the winter and salt and being exposed to the elements. I've had pretty good luck in the past. I got a feeling that the paint is going to rust before this clear coat, but that's just an experiment. We'll see what happens. And yeah, just got to let this dry, and then probably sometime tomorrow we'll assemble it and give it a test. Alright, I think today is either day 3 or 4. Pretty sure it's day 3. That's the trouble with these projects, is sometimes you go out and start a project like this, and sometimes it'll take a couple days because you got to get the creative juices flowing. Sometimes you have to step away, take a break. You got to wait for the paint to dry, whatever. So we're pretty much on the finishing stages here. I assembled everything, so everything's all together. And what I've just been working on now is finishing up some wiring connections, and because this thing is going to be so exposed to the elements, I wanted to ensure that I did a proper job on all these connections. So as opposed to doing like a crimp connection or something for all these connections, I'm doing a proper solder connection. And I also bought a bunch of heat shrink tubing from Amazon. And this is the real good stuff. It's a 3-to-1 shrink ratio, and it also has an adhesive glue in there to really seal up the wire nice. So yeah, all my connections are done. To do a project like this where you have auxiliary reverse lights, you can either wire them into your existing reverse lights, so you do a kind of a hot tap and then you want to run that to a relay from your existing reverse lights. Or the preferred method is you just tap off your 7-pin trailer connection. Reverse lights like these will not work with a 4-pin, you have to have a 7-pin. And if you're curious how to wire this up, if you look up 7-pin trailer plug wiring diagram on Google, it'll show you what plug or what connector you need to tap into so that the lights will only come on when you go in reverse. So yeah, gotta finish this up now and throw it on the back of the truck, and we'll do a lighting test tonight. And then tomorrow when there's some daylight, I'll show you what it looks like in the daylight. Alright, here's the completed product in the daylight. Yeah, you're seeing my license plate. Nobody better track me down. I don't really care anyway. But yeah, it came out real nice. See, the metal's all shiny. I really like that look. I really like how the light housings came out. It's different, and I mentioned it earlier in this video. It should be interesting to see if this clear coat finish is going to outlast paint, which I think it will. One of my favorite parts about this project, or one of the things I like the most, is I decided to use a piece of copper to hold down the wiring, and I think that just takes it to a new level. I mean, for what it is. So yeah, that's it for this project. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.